And this race, lost my place here. Okay. This position is for the remaining 2 years of a 6-year term and will be up for election again in 2015. So let's begin with opening statements, and Mr. Barnes, please go first.
Thank you. My name is Don Barnes, and I would like to begin by thanking the League of Women Voters, the Tri-City Herald, and Charter Communications, as well as the other sponsors of this forum. Thank you very much. I've been a home-owning resident within the boundaries of District 1 of the Port of Kennewick for 30 of the past 34 years. I've been married to my wife, Chris, for 39 years. Both of our children were born in this community, and we have 2 grandchildren that visit us in this community. I'm running to retain a seat on the Port of Kennewick because I want to give back to my community. I studied at Washington State University and obtained a Bachelor of Science degree. I went on to attain a Master's in Business Administration from the University of Washington. So I'm a cougar. I could be a husky. I'm a cougar. I have 30 years experience in commercial real estate, all facets of commercial real estate, from financing, development, brokerage, leasing, negotiations, and I believe my education and experience are strong assets for the Port of Kennewick Commission. If elected, my priorities for the Port are as follows. Number 1, my vision for the Port is that they be effective in the pursuit of their goals and objectives. Their goals are economic development and job creation, as well as quality of life projects that benefit our community. Number 2, my vision for the Port is that they balance the pursuit of these economic development and quality of life goals with bottom line fiscal responsibility. I think the Port can focus exclusively on their goals and lose sight of the bottom line would suffer, and conversely, I think it would be a mistake to focus on the bottom line because then we're competing too aggressively with the private sector and we're not accomplishing our goals and missions. Third, I see the Port as a strong, collaborative team player with our jurisdictional partners, multiple levels of government, the private sector, and the tribes. And then fourth, my vision for the Port is that, I would hold myself and the Port to the highest standards of accountability with honesty, integrity, and transparency in all that we do. Thank you.
Thank you. And I need to back up just a minute. I got ahead of myself. I really didn't introduce these people formally. Don Barnes, John Givens, and Danette Layne are the candidates. Barry Bush is also going to be on the ballot for this position. He had a prior out-of-town commitment and was not able to join us this evening. So now we'll proceed, and Mr. Givens, please give us your opening statement.
Thank you. My name is John Givens, and I too would like to thank the sponsors of this event tonight and the people that came and the people that watch this as we go forward toward the primary election. I'm going to cut right to the chase with my largest concern at the Port of Kennewick today, and it differs a little from what Don Barnes has said in his opening remarks, and it goes to bottom line fiscal responsibility. The 2012 Port budget reflected a cash surplus of $8.6 million. That's good. The 2013 budget reflected a cash surplus of $6.1 million, a $2.5 million reduction. 2012 income was pegged at $4.2 million, of which $3.2 million, or more than 75%, originated from the taxes of the people of Port of Kennewick boundaries. $1 million came from actual operating income. 2013 income pegged at $4.4 million, $200,000 more, all from taxes. 2012 operating expenses, $2.5 million, creating a $1.7 million operating shortfall. 2013 operating expenses, $3.1 million, a $2.1 million operating shortfall, $600,000 more. The neighboring ports of Benton, Walla Walla, Pasco, and Morrow all concentrate on economic development also, but all have the ability to be able to make the operating revenues meet the operating expenses. The Port of Kennewick at this point in time is going in the wrong direction. They are using cash surpluses to meet the operating expenses today, and as it continues, the tax burden will just continue to grow. I was appointed by the city of Kennewick to the Public Facilities District, where the Coliseum was $900,000 upside down and the Convention Center with $300,000 upside down. In 8 years, we turned that around. I'd like the opportunity to do that too with the Port of Kennewick as a commissioner. Thank you.
Well, thank you to the League and the Herald and the Chamber and the cities and the Charter for sponsoring. First, I'd like to share a little bit about myself and then my qualifications. I'm part of the group that has doubled the population in the Tri-Cities in the last 20 or so years. I'm 21 years into my 3-year plan, so I really like it here. I have raised 2 beautiful daughters here, and I'm watching my 2 witty, entertaining, and intelligent grandchildren grow up here as well. Professionally, I've had careers in banking and teaching and human resources. I have a lot of interests. Personally, I've kayaked the Hanford Reach, I've attained my motorcycle permit or endorsement, and I enjoy the theater. I'm the first person in my family to earn a bachelor's degree in Whitworth College in Spokane, and then I drove down to Toppenish here on weekends for years to earn my master's degree in community and HR development. In terms of community service, I'm the current chair of Good Health is Good Business program with the Tri-City Regional Chamber, and we're kicking off next week with our 100 Days of Wellness. I'm a director on the Leadership Tri-Cities Board, and I was the project manager for the Serenity Garden at the Tri-Cities Cancer Center. In terms of qualifications, you are hiring somebody, and I've interviewed over 300 people, so I know a little bit about hiring. You use a job description, and then you see if that person's a fit. And out on the Washington Public Ports Association, they have a job description, and I'll tell you their qualifications. Number 1, planning and goal setting and evaluation. Number 2, port district policy making. And 3, budgeting. And 4, designating a port executive, and you're responsible for the management of those. I have personal and professional experience in policy making. I've helped set policy in my own home as well as at work with the executives to try to create policy that helps us to meet our mission and our purpose and the goals that we have set. I have made personal and goals for myself as well as companies, and I help them develop for the future. And I'm certainly responsible for budgeting, and I have a lot of experience in the development and personal performance review of individual people or whole organizations. So thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Mr. Givens, I'm going to ask you to lead off on our first question. In today's article in the Herald, after mentioning the former Tri-City Raceway property near West Richland, you state, the port also needs to find an economic development project in Richland. Do you have any specific ideas in mind? And how can and should the commissioners balance development throughout the large geographical area that the Port of Kennewick covers?
That's an excellent question. When I came to the Port of Kennewick as director in 1997, my first week on the job, I received a telephone call from Senator Pat Hale at the time. She said, the mayors of West Richland and the mayors of Richland are in my office and they want a divorce from the Port of Kennewick. I said, give me some time to talk to them to find out what the problem is, and let's see if we can deal with it. I did. We formed a great partnership with the city of West Richland. We helped them extend sewer line. We helped them extend infrastructure. We helped the city of Richland with a boat launch. We purchased the Spalding Business Park, which was a home run for the Port of Kennewick. The problem that we have today is we have a lot of projects in Kennewick. We have a great project in West Richland, but we really don't have anything heavy going in Richland other than the Spalding Park, which is winding down. The city of Richland pays taxes, Kennewick pays taxes, West Richland pays taxes. Everyone that pays taxes deserves a little back. And so the port needs to take a look at what it can do within the city of Richland in the form of a port partnership project with the city.
Thank you. Ms. Layne.
Can you clarify the question for me, or the topic?
Well, basically the question is, how can and should the commissioners balance development throughout the large geographical area that the Port of Kennewick covers?
Thank you. I think this is one of the most challenging things for a port, as well as anybody that comes along with great or good ideas. There's a lot of research out there that says that if you have 1 to 4 goals, you might accomplish 1 to 2. If you have 4 to 8, you accomplish maybe one. And if you have over 12, you accomplish 0. So I think it's a balancing act, and I don't think it can be run by a formula per se. That says if this city or this part of a geographic region gives us certain dollar amounts, we have to compute out and do X, Y, and Z. So I think it's certainly a challenge, and I honestly don't know how to resolve that other than to work with a collective picture of what's going on. And I would personally rather see us do 1 or 2 things to completion, do well, gain credibility with the people in the community, and have results that have jobs and economic vitality than have it spread out so thin so that we're doing everything for everybody, so to speak. So I think it's a balancing act, and I think sometimes that you have to learn how to say, let your yes be your yes and your no be your no, and follow through and get some completed. But I think you have to communicate it with everybody so they know what's going on, and then you'll get to the next project. And so you're not really favoring, that's not what I'm talking about, but that you just get some projects done and completed, and then you move on to the next one. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Barnes.
Yes, thank you. I think that's an excellent question. One of the things the port strives to do is to work in a fair and equitable fashion with all of its jurisdictional partners. So our jurisdictional partners include the City of Kennewick. All of the City of Kennewick is within our boundaries. All of the City of West Richland, a portion of Richland, a very small portion of Benton City, and then of course Benton County. So we have a project in Richland, the Spalding Business Park, that is reaching its very successful conclusion, and that has been a home run and a job creator and it's driven economic development. So I think it would make sense for the port to begin to look for another project in Richland that could be another Spalding Business Park. And that area of the Richland Wire Island View would be an excellent area to start looking there. But that is a question, and something that I am mindful of is the fair, equitable treatment with all of our jurisdictional partners. We don't want to concentrate all of our development efforts in one single jurisdiction, because then the others are feeling that they're not getting their equitable return on their taxpayer input to the port. So I believe that a project in Richland, in the Richland Y area, might make sense if we can find one that is feasible and find a willing cooperative seller that would work with us at a reasonable price. Thank you.
Thank you. For our second question, we'll begin with you, Ms. Layne. In today's article in the Herald, you state you would like to encourage more active discussion at port meetings, strengthen relationships, and continue to improve the port's communication with the public and partners. Do you have some specific ideas on how to accomplish this? And I'll give you a possible hint from the League of Women Voters members. Look at the meeting time.
Yeah. Oh, I'm so glad you asked this question. It's one that I'm most passionate about, and I value not just saying you want to be transparent, but demonstrating it. If I have to say it so many times, I don't think you're going to buy that as much as if I demonstrate it. So I have been attending port meetings and other community meetings, cities, municipalities for about 2 years, preparing for this. And what I have observed is there are workshops at some of them, and they dialogue back and forth, the commissioners or council members, and there are others that seem to be more presenting to the community, and I think they're both valuable. What I've seen at the port of Kennewick, and I'm not sure that it's a bad intention, so I want to be clear about that. Just what my observation is that it seems more of a 1 or 2 person presentation. In fact, I've observed things like, no, I didn't get that in my packet. Did you get that? And so we have to regroup and hold it at, bring it to the next agenda. And I don't think it's a bad intention. I just think that I could bring something to the table that says, let's have discussion. In fact, last week, there's probably nobody here that was there, but they had a great meeting where Don was there. They had a great meeting where they were dialoguing back and forth and taking turns. It sounds silly, but, and I heard much more about the discussion and their thinking, and I would like to see that. I'd like to see some more robust communication. I know they're working on it's on their radar to work on their website. I think it should be user-friendly for the port staff to get the information, as well as the public to get the information, and then better access, including the port meeting time, or a way to get your message up to the port, and that the port actually hears it, the commissioners who hear the information if it comes through an email or whatever. So there's several ways, but I'm getting the paddle.
Thank you. Mr. Barnes?
Yes, I think that's an important issue, to maintain rapport and communication and transparency with the constituents. And the meeting time is 2 o'clock in the afternoon, the second and fourth Tuesdays of each month. We are, as a commission currently seated, we have experimented with a couple of evening meetings and to gauge attendance there to see if they were better attended. And I think that we would be receptive to that in the future, to try to make sure that we are accessible and making ourselves available as a commission to the public that we serve. Also, in terms of the communication and the discussion on the Port Commission, I think that that's something that maybe I've been accused of rambling on a little bit too long at a couple of meetings, but I do enjoy the discussion that we've had on the port, and I think it's very important to let people know what we're thinking. This was critical in my mind when we made the decision to close Vista Field. I think I held the floor for 10 or 12 minutes trying to discuss the issues that I thought of, the issues that I considered to make that very important decision for the port on. I mean, it's almost a once-in-a-lifetime decision. This was an asset that's been in the community, an integral part of our community since the 1940s, and I thought that it was very important to let people know what my thought process was, what went through my mind to arrive at that decision. And so I agree, it's something that we're aware of, and we can always improve, and feedback from the community and the constituents is a very important part of that process. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Givens?
I couldn't agree with you more on time.
Sure.
I think the meetings should be held later so that more people can attend if they have the desire to do so. I sit on two boards currently, the Tri-Cities Regional Public Facilities District and the Kennewick Public Facilities District boards, and I see Chuck Eaton out here, and those boards are very open. We give everyone the opportunity to speak that wants to speak, and we do engage with them when they have questions. We try to answer them. We try not to end up in any type of an argument, but we do engage. I was really surprised when I attended a recent port meeting and asked one of the commissioners a question, and his response was, "We don't engage back and forth here, Mr. Givens. If you wish to make a statement, you can make the statement, and if you wish to ask a question, we will try and get you in touch with the proper person that you can ask your question to and have it responded to at a later time." And I think that's dead wrong. I think as commissioners, we are basically, we work for the public, and we should give the public that takes the time to come out to the meetings every second that they need to get the answers to their questions.
Thank you. Our last question. Mr. Barnes, in today's article, you mention that your opinion differs with some of your opponents on the port's operating gap, and we heard Mr. Givens talk about that in his opening statement. But you noted that overall, the port has improved its financial condition during the last decade and is focused on economic development, not making money. We have a question from the audience that says, for all three of you, if you are elected, what will you do to look at how the staffing level has increased over the last 10 years, as well as the dramatic increase in operating expenses? So that was the question. I don't know the facts myself, but please go first.
Okay, I was appointed to the Port Commission in May of last year, and we have added one person, I believe. I take that back. I believe there was a person that retired, and so the staffing level at the port for the last year has remained the same. There was a vacancy unfilled when I came there. But regarding this, the difference between operating revenues and operating expenses, I'd like to point out that according to the State Auditor's Office, of all the ports in the state of Washington with 5 or more employees, there are only 2 that cover their operating expenses with their operating revenues. That's the Port of Tacoma and the Port of Edmonds. So the Port of Kennewick is not unusual in this regard. Now, if we want to focus exclusively on this difference between operating revenues and operating expenses, what exactly does that mean? How do we go about doing this? Well, in my mind, that would mean ramped up, more aggressive competition with the private sector for tenants to fill our buildings, for any kind of tenant, not incubation type tenants or anything. We would need to ramp up our competition with the private sector to bring in more revenues. And also, I believe that it would be fair to look at other fiscal indicators at the port. If you look over the last 9 years at the increase in assets constructed, they've almost doubled in the last 10 years. If you look at the increase in owners or taxpayer equity at the port, it's gone up 82% over the last 9 years. If you look at the levy rate, it's gone from 44 cents to 33 cents since 2001. We have a balanced budget, we have a clean audit history, and the port is in very strong financial condition. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Givens.
Well, first let me deal with the levy rate. The levy rate has gone down, but it hasn't anything to do with anything the port did. A citizens initiative was passed a few years ago that said a public entity can increase the tax by 1% a year plus the assessed valuation on new construction. Port of Kennewick has taken that 1% increase every year. The reason that the levy rate has gone down is because of the growth in assessed valuation of the Port District. When the assessed valuation grows at 5% and you only take 1, your levy rate is going to go down. But the Port of Kennewick has not reduced taxes. As it relates to the question about what would I do, I would look at every income statement line item and every expense statement line item and say what really is necessary and what really isn't necessary. I would not sell property to an out-of-town developer to put a sign on it to say for sale at a price higher than the price the Port of Kennewick sold it to them for in Vista Field. I would look at my tenants in my incubator buildings that have been there for more than 10 years. I don't think I'd put $750,000 into an incubator building and then not get that money back over the next 5-year lease period, let alone rent on the building. I'm out of time.
Thank you. Ms. Layne?
Yes, well, I'm thinking about part of your question had to do with staffing levels, and that I'm in HR and staffing. I would be interested in doing the research to look at different public entities, including ports, and what their staffing levels are so you can compare. It's so easy to judge from the outside that they are heavy or top heavy or loaded or not, but without really digging in and finding out, which is something that I tend to do, find more information to broaden my understanding before I make some judgment about that, to see. And then also to know from working in the administrative part of a company or an organization, there are a lot of things that are unseen or unknown, including the public records request that not only has the port, but many cities and public entities that have been taxed with that do take and consume a lot of time. I would challenge to say, how do we still get work done and projects done and results and still do that? We may have to roll up our sleeves and work a little bit harder, but I would look at the staffing levels just because that's a responsibility to see how we're doing, and that's one line item, on the budget. I do think the operating gap is something to look at, and it's important. I do think we should keep focused on the ROI. I would caution us to use the lens of a private business where we're trying to make more money and be competitive, like Commissioner Barnes was saying, that we're trying to outbid and outdo some private developers. I don't think that's the role of the port, and I would not support that. I would like to see if, no matter who's elected here this year, there's going to be a new team, so to speak, at the, or I think there'll be a new team at the commission. So I would like to see a workshop on the budget so we could drill into those line items and look at each one so that we're informed. And we can ask those questions. We can dig into the truth to get more information so that we're better informed. And it doesn't mean that we think that anything's being trying to slide under or they're doing anything wrong, but I think we need to be informed. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Now time for closing statements, and if you would go first, Ms. Layne.
Oh,
Yes.
sure. Well, we certainly all have vision and passion and action and community involvement. We all live here. We all have wonderful families. We want something special for Vista Field. We want to reduce that operating gap and have ROI, and we all bring something to the table. Why I'm running is because it's aligned with my purpose and my values. I know without a doubt that I'm here to build others up, and that's whether it's an individual, a team, an organization, or a community. And one of my guiding values that is through my core and core is to make a meaningful contribution to the community. And I think ports are a unique and special way to make a positive impact on a community because they make a positive impact on the economy, coming alongside public and private entities or businesses to stimulate our economy, both by maintaining current business and industry and jobs and adding more. And what I bring to the table, I don't think it's a secret that I bring diversity to the commission, and I think that's important to have on a commission. I also bring energy and focus. I'm focused fully and committed to the commission. I have no other competing priorities or opportunities to recuse myself from meetings, and I would be somebody who would be fully participating on the commissioners. My agenda is simple, and that's to do good work with the commissioners, the staff, and the community, and I believe I'm the right person for this role at this time, and I would appreciate your vote. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Barnes.
Oh, thank you very much. I was appointed to the Port Commission last May, 14 months ago, and in my first year, we faced challenges and difficult decisions. I believe my record is one of sound judgment and decisions that are in the best interest of the constituents and the taxpayers. I voted to close and redevelop Vista Field. We've talked about the operating gap, or the difference between revenues and expenses at the port. This decision resulted in the potential for $390,000 per year in that operating deficit. We've also taken measures to refurbish space that Thai sports graduated from and stayed in our community with those valuable jobs. And that incubation process is important in economic development and job creation. But I ask for your vote. I believe that, again, the decisions I've made are in the best interest of the taxpayer. You can read more about my positions at electdonbarnes.com, www.electdonbarnes.com, and thank you very much for this opportunity.
Thank you. Mr. Givens.
Well, thank you. Well, I'm blessed to say that I was in the charge of the port when we brought Thai sports to this community, now graduated, one of the largest worldwide manufacturers in the Tri-Cities. I've been a port commissioner for 13 years, ran unopposed 3 times. During that time, the port that I was involved with, the Port of Asotin County, was Port of the Year, Washington Port of the Year. I was the Port of Kennewick manager, executive director for 7 years. During that time, the Port of Kennewick was voted the Washington Port of the Year. I was president of the Washington Public Port Association, not once, but twice. Spent 6 years on their executive board. Was senior vice president of the Pacific Northwest Waterways Association. I know ports. Was one of the team that built the manual that Ms. Layne talked about here tonight on how to bring in new executive directors. So ports are not a stranger to me. I have more port knowledge than anyone at the Port of Kennewick right now. And I would like to go back to the Port of Kennewick as a commissioner and help make that port what I think it can be and what the taxpayers want. Thank you. I'd appreciate your vote.
Thank you. And I'd like to again thank all 3 candidates, Don Barnes, John Givens, and Danette Layne.